Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It is currently January 2nd of 2022. Woohoo! So I hope all of you guys had a good new year. Hope you guys didn't get into too much trouble. In this video, I wanted to address a question that I've been seeing pop up on a lot of weld forums and welding social media sites. And the question goes along the lines of, hey everyone, I'm looking to get into welding and or starting my own business. Should I invest in a multi-process welder for all of my work, or should I invest in multiple single process welders? And to be honest, it's a good question. All right, this is, take what I say with a bit of a grain of salt because it is my opinion, and my opinion has been derived from my time welding and the various experiences that I have had welding. And keep that in the back of the mind, because if you go and ask this question on the internet, you're going to get a whole bunch of different answers. And the truth of the matter is that there's no one real answer. Because again, everybody has their opinions based on their time in the field and their experience. So I'm not going to necessarily try to answer this question in this video on whether you should invest in a multi-process welder, get like one singular multi-process welder versus multiple single process welders. What I want to do in this video is kind of walk you through the steps of some of the pros and cons to each side of it, and also some of the various variables that you need to consider before you make this purchase. So anyway, that's what this video is going to be today. So let's go ahead and we will dive into some of all of the things that you should know before making this decision. So one of the first things that I want you to think about when you're trying to decide to buy a welder is look at your workspace. Now, my workspace takes place in my garage, which is a 2-car garage. So on this side, I have my truck, and on this side, I have everything else. Okay, all the garden equipment, some recreational stuff, equipment to work on my truck, etc., etc. Needless to say, it starts to get cramped in here. My 2-car garage is more of a 1-car garage and a whole bunch of other miscellaneous stuff. So for me, it was a pretty obvious choice to go with a multi-process. I do a lot of welding on a lot of different materials, and for me, I need to be able to swap between it all. So that was one of the biggest factors in me deciding to go with this Everlast Lightning model. And again, depending on how many of my videos you've seen, the Lightning model here will do MIG welding, it will do stick welding, it will do DC TIG welding for steel and stainless, and it will also do AC TIG welding for aluminum. So for my welding experience and the projects that I wanted to take on at home, specifically at home, not out in my industrial shop, but projects that I wanted to take at home, this welder was an obvious choice for me. So that being said, multi-process welders come with a couple of hitches, and you need to be aware of these. So this welder down here only does stick, the Lincoln Tombstone. It only does stick. That means you just turn the knob and you go. You make sure that you have the skills to run the stick, and all you do is turn that knob to match up to your skills to make a good bead. This machine, on the other hand, has about 5 times the dials when you're trying to tune it in. This is kind of a misconception about a lot of multi-process welding machines, is that because there's so many processes, the arc quality suffers. I, for one, can tell you that that has been incredibly untrue with this Everlast machine. And I think what's going on is, in fact, you know what, it'll be easier to show you if I turn it on. This will also end up being a little bit of a sneak preview for you for some of the things coming into the future. So, if you look over here, my machine is currently set to flux cord. Okay? In the future, I'm going to be doing a video on flux cord welding. This is the gasless flux cord, so also called a inner shield or self shield. But you'll notice over here, as opposed to a regular MIG machine, per se, I have a bunch of controls. Most MIGs will only give you a wire feed control and a voltage control. Versus me, I have trigger controls, pre-flow controls, starting amperage controls, or starting wire feed controls, excuse me, but wire feed and amperage are directly related on MIG processes, so close enough. I have an upslope control if I'm using a 4T trigger. I have a burn back control to try and minimize the little balls that'll end up on the end of your wire when you get done welding. So burn back control. I have a downslope control, again for a 4T trigger. I have a wire feed speed end control. I have a post flow control, and I have an inductance control. That's a lot more than just having two knobs to set for your wire feed and your voltage. And this is probably some of the things that can bite you in the backside if you go with a multi-process machine, because a good multi-process machine will have a lot of controls and settings that you need to get set correctly in order to weld correctly. So let me go ahead and turn this off. Actually, let me throw this on stick here. So, kind of an apples to apples comparison. This stick machine has one knob, and it sets your amperage. This stick machine has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 settings that I can control. I can't control the voltage setting, that's just there to meter it so that if I'm having trouble with something, I can look at it. But so right there, I've already got 5 times the amount of things that I can set. And this one happens to be one of the more important ones when you're comparing single process machines to multi-process machines. This arc force control. This can come back and bite you. This can come back and bite you if you don't know what it is or how it works. And I think a lot of the bad rep that a lot of multi-process machines will get comes from this setting and people not fully understanding it. So, I'm not going to dive into it. I'll dive more into it in a different video. But for now, I'm going to turn this off. And this should just serve as a good explanation why you might want to stick with a single process over a multi-process. There's a lot more settings on a multi-process. The reason for that being, it does multiple processes. So your TIG aluminum is not going to set up the same way as your TIG steel. Your stick welding, especially if you have multiple brands of sticks that you're trying to work with, that arc force helps you fine-tune the control to get what you want out of it. Versus a single process machine where that arc force is set by the factory. Okay, that's the big thing. A lot of the debate comes from being able to set your controls the way that you want to and understanding it versus having the factory set the controls for you and then locking it out so that all you can do is modify the amperage. So keep that in mind And that right there, that whole point right there, is the big reason why people develop preferences for brands. There are Lincoln guys, there are Miller guys. I am becoming an Everlast guy. I love that machine. A lot of that has to do with the settings in the background that you either can, like on a multi-process machine, you can adjust, or you can't adjust, like many of the single process machines. So keep that in mind. Multi-processes tend to be a bit more complicated, and you will need to know what you're doing with it, versus the single processes, which tend to be simplified and set from the factory. So those are a couple of things. Think about your workspace. How much space do you have for a welder? Again, I'm working on a much more limited space than I would like, so the multi-process was a great choice for me, versus having a TIG machine and then a stick machine and then a MIG machine over there kind of situation. So anyway, think about stuff like that if you're asking yourself this question. Now the next thing that I want to go talk about is pricing. So let's go talk about pricing, and we're going to do it inside because it is cold out here in the garage. So let's go talk pricing. Okay, so here we are inside. As you can see in front of me, I've got a pad of paper with a whole bunch of numbers on it. So where all these numbers are coming from is I hopped onto my computer there and went on to Everlast's website. Now on the top here, you'll see this is my setup. This is Weldin Eldon's setup. This is what you see in the garage, and this is what all of my videos, except for the AC TIG welding video, which if you haven't checked out those videos, please go check them out. This is what I'm using. So right here we got the Everlast Lightning 225. This is the machine out there. I love this thing. And I got mine on sale. I decided for the purposes of this video I would do the non-sale price, just because I don't know when Everlast is doing their sales. But anyway, this runs for about $2,700 on Everlast's site. This comes with the TIG torch, the stick lead, your stick holder, and a MIG gun. So it comes with stuff. It is basically ready to weld minus the consumables. I didn't really include consumables on this. Some manufacturers will send you consumables with their machines. I didn't include it just for the sake of, I'm guessing you have preferences for consumables that you want to try. But anyway, point being, the machine itself costs about $2,700. I also bought the cart, which is a Power Cart Model 250. That is $150. So my whole multi-process setup here comes in for about $2,850. Okay, that's about what you need to get started and to get the equipment to do what I do. Now, I've spent extra money on tungstens and stick electrodes and TIG filler metal and MIG wire. So keep that in mind. There's some extra costs in there that I haven't included on here, largely because, well, there's a whole bunch of different stuff on the market. So you'll probably want to explore a little bit on that, but all in all, you could probably get into this for $2,850 and maybe about $100 worth of consumables, and you can do everything that I'm doing. So anyway, that's my setup. That's my multi-process setup. Now, if you were to go to the single process route, which is down here, and the way that I kind of calculated this is, what would I have to get in single process machines to equal my capabilities with the one multi-process machine? So to do that, and I kind of, let me make one more caveat before I go into this. This machine, the Lightning 225, is a 200 amp rated machine. So when I was looking Everlast has their power TIG line in varying ranges of amperages that you can use. So I went for the power TIG that is as close to the 200 amp that my machine is in their power TIG line. And that machine costs $2,500. Now, here's one thing that you're going to learn about TIG machines. Almost all TIG machines, not all of them, but most TIG machines that you find will be able to do TIG and stick. This is because TIG machines are what's called a constant current machine. Now, on the flip side, the Lincoln Tombstone out there is a stick-only machine because it does not include any of the high frequency settings that are in a TIG machine. But anyway, just a little side note, most TIG machines will also do stick. So that's why I didn't include a third machine, is because that stick process is included with the TIG. Anyway, point being, $2,500 just for TIG and stick. Now my machine also has MIG capabilities. So in order for the single setup to match up to the capabilities of my multi-process setup, I have to get a MIG machine. So I went with the Everlast Cyclone, again as close to the 200 amp rating as I could get. And that machine runs for $640 so that I could get the MIG capabilities. I also added in the same power card for transportation and being able to store all your stuff, etc., for the same $150. So the cost to get the same capabilities of the multi-process and single processes is $3,290. So for an extra, let's see, think about $440, $450-ish or so. And again, this does not include consumables. You can get the same capabilities as the multi-process in single processes. So on that particular point, the multi-process is probably a better way to go. Now, remember, like I said out in the garage, I run multiple different welding processes on multiple different materials. So I want all those extra processes. If you yourself are thinking about getting into it, then always ask yourself, what am I doing with the machine? Am I just TIG welding aluminum? Because if you're just TIG welding aluminum, you'll notice there's, a $200 difference between just the machines up here. You might want to save that $200 if you're just TIG welding and you're not going to touch MIG or stick. So there is that point to be made as well. Think about why you are buying the machine, what you want to do with it, and what you are hoping to accomplish. Also think about how far you want to go with that machine. So, but that's just an example. So in order to get the same capabilities of one machine, split over multiple machines, almost always, in fact I think always, but I'm going to stick with almost always, you'll almost always end up at a higher price point for capabilities. But if you want to limit your capabilities to a specific process, you'll probably end up saving yourself some money in the machine. So that's something to think about when you're talking about price point between multi-process and single process. Okay, so now we're back out in the cold garage, and after we talked about price in there a little bit, you heard me mention something about what you want to do with your setup. Why are you buying this machine? And I want to touch back on that subject a little bit more, just because it's a very, very important question that you need to be asking yourself. So, for example, when I was looking to buy this Everlast, I wanted a machine that I could take on light projects at home with, and specifically any light project that was within my skill set. So my skill set includes stick welding, MIG welding, and TIG welding. And on the TIG side, I do steel, stainless, and aluminum. So I wanted a machine that could more or less do it all for light projects at home. And I had also been toying around with the idea of the welding YouTube for, well, kind of a few months before I bought this machine. So on welding YouTubes, most people come to welding YouTubes in order to figure out stuff. So I wanted a machine that I could show a wide variety of skills to you guys on YouTube. So when I got thinking about it, this Everlast was an obvious choice. Again, it has the AC and DC TIG side to it, and it's small and compact for my crowded shop versus having one TIG machine, stick machine, and then a MIG machine to do everything that I wanted to do. So anyway, keep that in mind. So right about now, I would tell you right about now, go grab a pen and paper. Pause the video, go grab a pen and paper. And then once you have your pen and paper, write these questions down and answer them. First, what am I buying this machine for? Are you like me where you have a where you have a wide variety of welding skills that you want to utilize? If that's the case, you might want the multi-process. So ask yourself, why am I buying this machine? Are you just buying it for specific fabrication? Are you buying it only to weld steel with? Because if your business plan is to only weld one type of material using only one process, it might be worth it to you to save the extra $200, $300, however many dollars and just go with the one machine because that's all you're using it for. That is a very valid point to be making when you're planning this out. So that's question one. What am I buying this machine for? Make sure you're very clear on that question before you invest in any machine. Question number two, kind of alluded at the beginning of this video. How much space do I have? Do I have the space for multiple welders to be stacked up along the wall? Or are you like me where you're working out of your garage and your garage is getting more and more cramped as the months go by? Again, think about how much space you have. One multi-process welder is probably going to take up a lot less space than multiple single process welders. So that's question number two. Space. Do I have space for all of these welders? Question number three. What is my budget? Okay. This should probably be question number two, but we'll make it question number three for the sake of this video. So what is my budget? Again, as we saw inside there, the multi-process, just the machine, is probably an extra $200 to $500 more, depending on, companies or whatever you end up going with. $200 to $500 more than multiple single process machines. But again, you're going to have to pay that materials bill for all of your machines versus maybe just paying for it once. So there is that argument to be made. Always look at your budget. Always be thinking, what am I buying the machine for right now? Do I want to invest more in the machine now or later? How far do I want to take my welding projects? Am I hoping to make a business out of it in the future, or am I just doing little projects around the house? So again, answer those questions. Answer those three questions and you'll probably have a pretty good idea on whether you should go with a multi-process welder or a single process welder. And again, remember, the multi-process welders usually come with extra settings that you yourself will need to take the time to learn. So always remember that. There's the simplicity of a single process or the, flexibility of a multi-process. But the multi-process, you have to sit down and learn it. And if you're willing to watch a couple more Weldin Eldon fabrication videos, I will be trying to teach those differences, those settings, and what they do to the best of my ability. So, always answer those questions before you decide to buy a machine. Again, what am I using this machine for? What is my budget? And how much space do I have? Answer those 3 questions and you'll probably get a pretty good answer on what machine you should buy. So that's going to do it for this video. I hope you guys ended up learning something. Hope you guys had a good new year as well. I know I did. And this is going to be a first for me, but I kind of want to try and get this YouTube thing to take off. So if any of you guys would consider dropping a like and a subscribe on this, that would very much help me get this going. And if I can get this going, then I'd actually be able to put out some more videos. And again, hopefully in the future, we can, get this channel going off the ground, but I can't do it alone. I do have to hit a sub requirement and a view requirement before YouTube will, help me get off the ground. So if you guys could drop a like and a sub, I would greatly appreciate it. Let's all have a good 2020. No, it's not 2020. It is 2022. Excuse me. Wow, I'm out of it. That's a great way to start off the year. Let's have a great 2022, and we will see you guys in the next one.